If you remember by my Raido Kuzunaho review, I said something about Shin Megami Tensei took the throne from Final Fantasy in my heart. Well, I still feel that. SMT might be a tad bit higher up on Final Fantasy for me these days, but this doesn't mean that I gave up on Final Fantasy. I've been playing Final Fantasy for maybe 24 years. Started with Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy IX, and also with Chocobo Racing if you can count. As you can guess, Squaresoft was my soft spot. I don't wanna bore you with my Final Fantasy memories and stuff, but I'm here for Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster review series. Starting from the first title, I'll be reviewing the whole Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster roster and the other titles as well. I'm also playing Dirge of Cerberus right now and will try to do my best to place each Final Fantasy title on my tier list. If there are any Final Fantasy titles that you wanna see, be sure to tell me. Right, so my reason to take a look at Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster this late is that I was waiting for a Nintendo Switch release. Square Enix never announced it, but I was waiting for it. Thought that Pixel Remaster would be at least launched for Nintendo Switch, so that Japanese can continue to play even on rush hour Tokyo trains. I'm not joking here, they would make big bucks if the whole 6-game package was also on Nintendo Switch. But oh well. Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster brings some good quality of life elements and also keeps the old gameplay approach in order to present an experience close to the original version. Like for example, there is no MP here, but rather amount of spell that can be casted. I think that is what they were trying to achieve here, a remaster that resembles the original works, with some quality of life elements and fixes. But for newcomers here, let's start with the plot of Final Fantasy. The land is decaying, winds are dying, seas are raging and volcanoes are erupting. The world is nearly on the brink of destruction, and a prophecy tells a tale of 4 adventurers, or warriors to be precise, who would carry 4 crystals of light that would rekindle the crystals of 4 elements, bringing harmony and peace upon the world. The first Final Fantasy has no unique protagonist, but rather starts like a role-playing game. From 6 different classes, 3 being melee and 3 being ranged, you form your own party of 4. It is totally up to you how to form your party, meaning that you can play as 4 thieves or 1 warrior with 3 black mages. The most common party is 1 warrior, 1 thief, 1 white mage and a 1 black mage. Aside from these classes, there is also a monk fighting with bare fists and a red mage, a hybrid black and white mage who can also do melee DPS. A jack of all trades to be precise. Warriors can wear heavy armor, having the most HP, and also use special swords like Excalibur. Thief is more like a glass cannon type of warriors, having low HP but hitting more. They can easily clear these bosses also. Besides that, black mages are the real deal glass cannons. They are quite vulnerable by the early game, but they begin to nuke everyone and everything starting around the mid game. You can either take my advice and play with 1 warrior, 1 thief, 1 white mage and 1 black mage, or experiment on your own. I will be talking about it soon, but around the mid game you can also evolve your starting classes. The first Final Fantasy starts with characters trying to save Princess of Cornelia from the infamous Knight Garland. Garland, as the first Final Fantasy villain, used to be a Knight of Cornelia Kingdom, but somehow went rogue and kidnaps Princess Sarah to the Shrine of Chaos. Yes, the very same Chaos Shrine that we see by the Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. A review about that title will also arrive soon, so I'll keep it short for now. As you leave Cornelia, Final Fantasy begins with random encounters and leaving you without explaining anything. But I'm here and ready to help you. Be sure to purchase lots of potions, antidotes and supportive items whenever you are heading to a dungeon. Be sure to update your gear if you need and explore any dungeon or any cave that you enter and open all of the chests. Final Fantasy is a vastly open world JRPG requiring to explore each corner of the maps, talking to NPCs to figure out what is going on and what to do next. To be more precise, it never tells you what to do next. Although you need to restore 4 crystals of light, Final Fantasy doesn't let you decide which first crystal dungeon you would enter. It feels like it lets you to decide due to having a vast open world and exploration with freedom, but the path is already drawn out for you. I don't think this is a flaw and it never bores you. Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster presents a magical journey with remade soundtracks that makes you feel nostalgic and probably miss your childhood, with a bittersweet taste. Final Fantasy doesn't teach you any spells. Any magic that white, black or red mage can do need to be bought from magic shops, and each spell has a level. Each character can only hold 3 spells of each level, meaning this will be okay for white and black mages, but for red mage, either you need to forget a spell if you want to change or adjust according to your gameplay style and team formation. Starting from level 1 to level 8 magics, each level of magic can be found by progressing through the story and reaching to a new village. By each character level up, their amount of magic cost increases, but as I mentioned before, these spells need to be bought from the spell shops first. If you purchase the magic of each level, gather gear from either shops or from the dungeons and beat the random encounter enemies, I don't think you would have any problem by finishing the game. During my run, I only had problem with the last boss, as it can nearly heal itself, which you need to deal high damage and also some defensive buffs to stay alive. During your quest, you journey to 4 different crystals with elements of earth, fire, water and wind, and each dungeon has its own elemental enemies. Although these dungeons sometimes seem long and complex to explore, you can use your map feature that is added by the Pixel Remaster. It can even show you the locations of chests or where the stairs are to go deeper into the dungeon. Final Fantasy can be quite difficult to navigate without using any walkthrough or guides, but it also helps the players by these quality of life features. From bosses to dungeons, with its pixelated sprites, Pixel Remaster offers a quite decent experience that is again similar to the original NES experience, and that is why I recommend you to play it. If you care about experiencing the original work, you can play this Pixel Remaster as well, rather than PSP or GBA versions, but I think I would also recommend you the GBA version if you just want to breeze through the game. After achieving 2 crystals, you can also discover an airship that lets you navigate through the whole map easily. But once you reach to this point within the story, you need to discover the King of Dragons, Behemoth, that wants to see your courage. With this questline, you can start your Trials quest, and by completing it, your characters can evolve. Warriors turn into knight, thief into ninja, monk into master, and each mage into wizards. Their weapon of choices can also differ with this character evolution, so be sure to do it by your run. With the first Final Fantasy title, I'll begin to tackle every Final Fantasy title and add them to my tier list. It might take years, but I'm looking forward to do it. But also keep that in mind that it's a huge IP, so it's gonna take some time to adjust my own tier list. Since I played the whole series already but gonna replay it to prepare review videos, I kinda know where I'm gonna place the first title, making it a C tier. It is the first of the series with the lack of story, the magical atmosphere or the plot twist that the other games have. Final Fantasy universe will expand to something greater with each experience, so stay tuned for more. Because as I said, Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII and The Stranger of Paradise are on their way. And of course, Final Fantasy II of Pixel Remastered.